All right, time to talk about the president's latest Twitter feud. This one seems to be with the mayor of San Juan, Puerto Rico. In responding to her attacks on him, the president attacked fake news and politically motivated attacks against him and noted the amazing work being done by the military and FEMA. These attacks on the president were also evident last night on television. If you were watching Saturday Night Live, right here on 11 Alive, during the news portion, Michael Shea, very controversial segment where he attacked the president's response to what is happening down in Puerto Rico. Now, we did bleep out part of what he said, but take a listen.
This isn't that complicated, man. It's hurricane relief. These people need help. You just did this for white people twice. Do the same thing. Go tell Melania to put on her flood heels, get some bottled water, some food, pack up some extra Atlanta Falcons Super Bowl T-shirts, and write them a check with our money, you cheap.
So there it was. Meanwhile, FEMA has issued a statement. This is Brock Long, the director of FEMA, said, we're not going to be satisfied. We're not going to be satisfied until the situation is stabilized. And the bottom line is that this is the most logistically challenging event that the U.S. has ever seen. Well, we're asking you what you think about what's going on. And specifically, do you think people are being too critical of President Trump's response? And 43% of you are saying yes. 57% of you are saying no. So that raises the question, is this President Trump's Katrina that we're talking about here? Let's bring in Natisha Lance, who's been taking a look at some of the numbers associated with all this. Let's start with the money that's being spent or not being spent here.
Right. Well, first, Vinny, I want to tell you that Katrina cost $108 billion in total recovery. But when you compare the two, so get the basics out of the way. Katrina was a Category 3 when it made landfall. Maria was a Category 4. But when you look at the numbers, just in terms of aid and recovery dollars, $10.5 billion. We see it right there, within 4 days of that aid package. Now, this has to be approved by Congress. Now, what they're saying in terms of Maria is that this is weeks away so far. And the reason being, partially, is because they weren't able to get into some of these rural areas. You talked about it before, that 50% of the roads
So they don't even know how much it's going to cost.
They don't know exactly how much it's going to cost.
All right, well, let's talk about the things that people need, which is food and water. How's the response in comparing the two?
That's been a big issue. So 25 million meal kits, 31 million liters of water, and 2,700 workers for Hurricane Katrina. This is, again, 7 days after Hurricane Katrina hit. On the side of Maria, 4.4 million meal kits, 6.5 million liters of water, and about 600 workers. Now, you do also have to take into consideration how many people are impacted by this. Hurricane Katrina, about 450,000 people. So far, they're saying with Hurricane Maria, 3.4 million people who have been affected by this.
All right, how about actual boots on the ground, folks who can get in there and do stuff and distribute and help folks out?
Right, so this is something that the president has really been criticized about because there weren't boots on the ground before the hurricane made landfall. So with Hurricane Katrina, you see 10,000 initial troops were there before it even made landfall. 72,000 were deployed in total. So that was relief effort workers as well as boots on the ground, National Guard, et cetera. When it comes to Hurricane Maria, they now have 10,000 troops. We're on day 11 now after the hurricane hit. 10,000 troops there, including relief workers as well. But we have seen those numbers increasing as they figure out what their needs are.
All right, and finally, how about the president? Do we know when he's going to visit?
Well, he did tweet last week. He said that he's going to be there on Tuesday of this week coming up. So by then it's going to be day 13. But when you compare it to his reaction to Hurricane Harvey, Hurricane Irma, he was there 4 days after both of those. And he has been in Houston twice already.
All right, Natisha, appreciate that. I want to really zero in and focus in on what's going on in this comparison. We've got a special guest with us tonight. I'd like to bring her aboard right now, Dr. Nsegna Burton from Clark Atlanta University, also a new media professor there, and the creator of the award-winning Burton Wire.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being here. How about that comparison? Is it a fair comparison between what's happening in Puerto Rico and Katrina?
I think in terms of what happened with Katrina, Katrina really happened on the continental United States, whereas Maria happened separate from the continental United States. So it's a fair comparison in terms of response times. That data is accurate, but in terms of the logistics of it, it's a very different situation.
Logistics. So I'm going to put some things up on the board for you right now. At this point, access to drinking water, 45%, 16 people have lost their lives. 721 of 1,100 gas stations are open, but this is the big one everyone's talking about. Electric customers, just 5% of them have electric.
Yes.
And they do say that every municipality has been at least visited by this time and given some of the emergency supplies. So let's talk about that. So, you know, there's tons of criticism for the president here. Is the president to blame for, 5% power and access to communications that people are looking for down there?
Well, Maria is to blame, right? Hurricane Maria is to blame for what happened. I mean, the entire electrical grid system was out. The president is taking heat because of his attacks on the mayor of San Juan, Puerto Rico. And that is obscuring what the actual facts are that are surrounding the hurricane. This hurricane...
So are you saying that the words of the president are getting in the way of people understanding what's actually going on there?
That's exactly what I'm saying. And, you had the quote up there from the FEMA head earlier in the broadcast. But, this is it's an unprecedented hurricane in terms of how it has impacted Puerto Rico. Also the U.S. Virgin Islands, which people are forgetting about. And so the logistics are hard to figure out because we haven't had this happen in a very long time. And so what is happening is that people are getting caught up in the rhetoric that's on Twitter as opposed to paying attention to what needs to be happening to help
and let me ask you about that.
The people of Puerto Rico.
Because I played that. I don't know if you saw Saturday Night Live last night, but we played what Michael Shea said. And he seemed to make this into a case of the president helping white people, but not helping people who are not white, like the people in Puerto Rico.
Well, President Trump has made horrible statements about the people of Puerto Rico that he did not make about the people of Texas and Florida and what have you. So Michael Che could make that deduction. But what I'm saying to you is that President Trump is going to continue doing what President Trump does, and that is to attack people who are disenfranchised in some way, shape, or order. That's what he does. But what needs to happen in terms of the people of Puerto Rico is for people to stay focused on getting help to those folks. And the president can...
he seemed to say that the motivation was because of the color of their skin, the response of the government. Do you think that's a fair statement?
I don't think it's a fair statement because this is not a usual circumstance. But I do think it's a fair statement to criticize the president's attack on the mayor, and I think that's race-based and gender-based. But what we need to focus on, truly...
Focus on helping the folks.
Puerto Rico.
That's what we need to do.
Yes.
And I really appreciate your time tonight. Thanks so much for coming in. The Burton Wire, check it out.